company in Delaware named Bain, and then which is financial, and then moved into Jersey, where we were living in project management for about 3 years. And then I moved back to Nigeria Transport about a year ago, and I'm running the project management office. People are crazy, what do you guys do in transport? Really, we're doing stuff, but I think for me, project management, as I spent some time, about a year here now doing projects, is trying to understand people, the diversity, and find that, the common ground in terms of, what the issues are and how we resolve them. A lot of people don't understand timing in this environment. This thing called African time seems to be applying everywhere. So it's trying to help people understand what time management is all about and how to execute on the requirements that have been laid out by our customers. In my case, my customers are different subsidiaries of transport. So getting people to understand the timing of this and the project management, the start date and an end date, and just that the SPA is not routine. So getting people to realize that, what they bring to the table is critical in terms of their time and execution on the tasks that have to be answered to.
Thank you. I should mention, Alfie said she heard about the social justice movement. She's sitting in Trinidad who is supposed to be one of our speakers, but she's currently held up in Abuja. We're hoping that she will join us in the course of this session. Okay, thank you for those introductions, and I'm sure that we all at this point are probably convinced that we will gain a lot from our discussion. Now, project management, as you all know, is much said about terminology, and it means different things that we do differently. But in my view, in very simple terms, it's about having a valid business case for the project. It's about ensuring that you have a sponsor, somebody who takes responsibility for the project. It's about ensuring that there is a process that is predictable, that is measurable, and that at the end of the day, achieves the desired outcome. So, many of you are probably very much aware of the statistics of projects. There are lots of projects globally and locally. And in some of the statistics that I picked up, talked about various challenge projects and various degrees. One says that 75% of projects face the deadline. That's a lot. 55% exceed their budgets. 40% have challenges with communication, and 37% are unable to meet the project requirements. I think that these figures are probably conservative for Nigeria. The global statistics. If we looked at Nigeria, I don't know what percentage of projects will usually miss their deadline. Can anybody give us a figure? What do you think? Unfortunately, we don't have these statistics in Nigeria. That's one of the challenges. But what would you say to that? 85%. What? 85%. Okay. Something in that range, at least. And there are many, many causes of project failure. But the main cause is globally the breakdown of communication. It's very simple, but that's more than about 7%. Weak planning, 39%, and poor quality control, 5%. So there are many issues around projects, and whether we like it or not, at various stages of our professional development, we are involved in projects, either managing them or being part of them. So it does help to be able to acquire some workable, practicable tools and techniques for project management. So we've had 2 other sessions of project management, 2 other breakfast sessions last year. The first one was proposing rules to a PMP, and the second one was a project management project. All of them were very, very useful as inside of the discussions. Now we're also, I should mention that we're holding a project management summit. It was supposed to be November, it was holding to February next year, and we will be getting a lot more details about this project. So I'm going to be building panel here. Questions. I'm going to start with Alfie this time. Alfie, we've noticed an influx of expatriates into the Nigerian market. A lot of them to do with projects we need to involve. My first question is, before I ask the question, let me say that some people think that there's a lot of value to be derived because there's international exposure, international experience that we can share. The other school of thought is that typical expatriates are ill-equipped to cope with challenges, peculiar local challenges that we have in heard various sides, and I can understand various sides. What is your view? How do you think, what role do you think that expertise should play in project management? And more importantly, what tips do you have for us? What should we be expecting from them? How do we realize benefits from typically the project manager, portfolio manager? What kind of process are we going to be able to realize benefits from the person in that? I'm really talking around managing diversity projects. Some people argue that projects are challenging enough without diversity. Some people think that diversity is beneficial in projects. What is your view?
I think, first of all, if I just talk about the diversity issue and then go back to the role of project management for the next discussion. I think in terms of people, I think really what makes a project is people, right? And anywhere you manage a project, you're going to have people, whether they're Indian or they're Chinese. Also, it depends on the sector. In my 1 year experience here, I realized that our challenges in terms of people is almost always, it's almost different from the kind of challenges we face when I run projects in the state. A lot of the issues for us in the States is not so much communication, but so much as getting the right requirements from the sponsor in terms of, hey, this is exactly what they need versus what we're giving them. In Nigeria, there's that whole thing of, this tribal thing is an issue. You're taking an Igbo person versus Yoruba person. I don't see that coming into this culture. I don't see that. I see a job that we need to do. I see the fact that we need to execute on the requirements that's been presented to us. So it's a new kind of challenge, and it's something that, as an expert, you have to very, very quickly come to terms with. And I think, for me, what has always worked for me in terms of trying to manage people is helping people understand, first of all, it's nothing about you as a person, it's nothing about, where you come from. It's the case of we all have to have the same goal in mind. So I spent a lot of time at the beginning of the project helping people understand that we have a job to do, we have one goal, and really we have this discussion, we have this acronym with them, what's in it for me versus what's in it for you. I don't think about the tribal issues. I try to understand them. I listen to people explain to me why this person, that person, and I help them say, listen, this is not, help me understand it, but put that aside, because at the end of the day, it's one goal, and that is we need to deliver the solution. So, I find people saying, when I go, what's in it for me? I find someone saying, I want to make money again. No. This is not about making money. You earn a salary already. What do you derive? At the end of this, by the time, we have accomplished this, what would that mean to you personally? And then you start talking about the value that they bring to the table, the skill set that they have, and then also trying to find, is there anything that you think you're missing that you can learn from? This is a person that you think you love from your tribe, but maybe he has some favoritism or because of the CEO they brought them in. There's a lot of things that, for example, this thing about, this person is in the company because Joe Blow said put them there. I've never, encountered that situation. You're employed, because of your skills and what you can bring to the table. So getting here, I have to deal with stuff like that. So the important thing for me as a project manager is, first hear them out. I listen a lot, actually. I do most of the things when I talk. Hear them all out, but then always bring them back to the fact that, listen, you have a project that we have to deliver on. Sometimes I take away this thing called project, and I say, tell me what you can do for me. I'll tell you what I can do for you. Or list out 5 things that by the time you're done from this project, you say, you know what, I feel good. And we successfully completed 2 projects, and at the end, for one person in particular, the fact that they learned more about putting an MS project plan together versus, trying to, write notes, for example. All they did was just listen and write notes and write notes and write notes, And so, at the end, the person was really pleased that, oh my gosh, I actually learned how to build a plan, not from Excel spreadsheet, but using MS projects, And also, as a project manager, I find that I'm constantly teaching and you constantly mentor, because at the end of the day, you have a global view of what, the solution is. And you take them step by step, peel back the onion and help them understand that, without these steps, the work you're breakdown structure. I find work to replace work breakdown structure because in this environment, people don't understand some of those terminologies. So very quickly, I try and put myself with the local lingua, what makes people tick here, and the culture, that's a big deal, So a lot of that is learning about them, learning the local language, trying to speak the local language, and trying to, put this thing about, tribalism, cultural things. Once you're in the office, it shouldn't even be an issue. So I've been able to accomplish that. In terms of as an expat coming in here, it's been tough, there's no question. The kind of issues we deal with here. Recently, I heard this thing about, what's it? Not voodoo, what do you call it? Juju, in my office. It's like, oh my gosh, you have no idea, what you learn here. They don't teach you in Harvard, they don't teach you in any business school, and I have a master's in project management, and, every day I sit and I'm like, what am I going to learn new today? Because, someone was conscious, they said, oh, that person, they had sat on the chair, but God knows what would happen to that person, because if someone wants that role, they don't have the skill set to go with it. Okay, I know it exists, but I just pray, I just found myself in God's word and pray that I can get through my day, As an expert, you have to quickly learn a lot of what's going on around you, and be very prayerful, which most of us can see. But learn about the people of God, find a friend, find people who have been in the environment for a long time, especially people who have, they say the expats, but they came in 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, try and find those networks and, just listen to them and try to understand. In terms of what I would bring to the table, I bring all the other aspects that, that they don't have here. I bring the kind of real issues that we would deal with on a normal situation versus here. I bring the technology aspect, that a lot of these offices, like my office, we have a typewriter in there. I'm like, what's the typewriter doing in here in this day and age, So it's, helping them see this thing, about this time management thing is a big deal here. It is such a big deal, So that for me is critical in terms of the success of my projects coming, as an expat or coming from abroad, is helping people to understand when you say 8, you mean 8. Not, when you say 8, you're just leaving your house at 8, And, every day I get excuses about, there's traffic. I'm in traffic. I'm sitting in traffic every day. So you're no different from what I'm going through versus you. I think, your word is your bond, and we continue to hone in on the delivery of the solution of the project requirements. People don't understand requirements gathering. They just get hold of that. What do you want? Okay, right, and walk out the door. You really have to preempt them with questions and more questions and get out really what is it that this person wants at the end of the day, so that they'll be a happy customer and they'll come back again.
I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I take it slightly different point of view, because to say we should discount the culture that exists is asking for trouble, because our culture is what makes us. I'm not talking about all that kind of stuff, but in my experience so far, in the UK and in Spain, where I've been working, it's very procedural. You send somebody an email and they respond. Yeah, you send somebody an email and they don't respond. Now, it's not because they're being rude, yes, but this is society where we're a lot more verbal and oral in the way we speak, in the way we speak to reports. It's not writing. It's come and talk to me and I get to go down and put it on that sort of thing. So it's understanding the culture, the way we are, why we are. So for me, I'd say what we did with the system, yes. And coming from wherever, America, wherever you come from, Nigeria is people without you. A lot of things are wrong, but a lot of things are right, and will continue. So let us leverage what is good about the system and come with your so-called international experience. And this is where I think a non-Nigerian will struggle, having that understanding. I'll give you an example. Recently we went live, we were about to go live with part of the project, and one of the main stakeholders took a position which said it's not going to happen. Now I went to her and I said, sister, listen, Now, you're not going to learn that kind of thing in any project management schools or what have you. But if I could talk to her and speak to her and teach me to say, okay, listen. Now, another stakeholder I would who is a Nigerian, that method will not work because of that interrelationship. So you have to know your stakeholders, and that's why I said understand the culture. So for a foreigner, they will struggle with that sort of thing. And like I said, it's not because it's normal, it's right, but just understand the way we are, and then use your so-called experience and work with the system. Now, but again, a foreigner would say, I want to state of report on so and so day in this format, blah, blah, blah. Most of us Nigerians will go away and we will do it, just because it's essential. But it's the understanding, why are we doing it? What is the value in it? So when that foreigner goes, that's the end result. If the next guy doesn't ask for 6 report, it's not going to happen. But if you understand why, you have to stay in the stage report and what format, it comes in. Then when the person goes with a new project manager or director, whatever it is, they will continue to do it because they see the value and they see the purpose in doing it. So I would rather imbibe our culture and take what works and leverage on that. And yes, certain things don't work, and that's where but if you try for a foreigner to try and impose immediately, I mean, naturally we resist change anyway. So they will resist, and I personally, I would resist. So it's working with who we are, what we do, and that's my thing.
I'm not discounting the culture, I'm actually Nigerian. But I don't want it to be the focus of, the fact that we have a job to do. So I listen a lot to what the issues are, and I try to learn and understand. But always bringing people back to the fact that at the end of the day, we have a job to do.
Okay, I'll summarize what you two have said. I was basically, you get some of my yeah. And basically, the way I see it is expatriates coming, expatriates or subject matter experts who are locals coming because they come with hopefully a very good understanding of globally accepted best practices that work, that have been proven to work. They also come with experience of delivery. Somebody comes into building a continental hotel because they have built a continental hotel in 7 other countries around the world. So they come with a good understanding of best practices. They come with real life experience. They have delivered those projects. Yeah. So they come with that. What is important is, like if I said, something about cultural awareness is extremely important. And I think a seasoned project manager knows that. And it doesn't really matter where you come from, but you take some time to understand the culture which relates to stakeholder management. What is the prevailing culture in this environment, and how am I going to deal with it? If time management is a problem, there are things that I have seen project managers from other parts of the world come in to do. People will sometimes go and call people on their way to meetings because, or sometimes they would encourage a senior person, they will encourage a senior person to be there on time for a meeting, and everybody else falls in line. So that expertise comes in with that good understanding and experience, and cultural awareness is very important. That helps them to kind of like say, okay, we understand the good things and bad things about your culture, but we know how to get this thing done. And what's important, what I think should be important is for those kind of project managers to understand in Nigeria that perhaps our level of maturity is not, in terms of global best practices and implementation, is not like you would find in some other places, and to adopt a coaching and mentoring style straight away. You have to, do not complain about the fact that you have to bring people that will work against the expatriates. Understand that people may not have used Microsoft Project before, they will still use typewriter, status reports, and all of those things. And adopting that coaching and mentoring mindset will really help the expatriate project manager to kind of like become more effective. What I think organizations that make expatriates should then try and do is ensure that there's a mechanism for skills transfer. That I find sometimes lacking, and we then keep on bringing expatriates over and over again. They are competent Nigerians. We should have a vested interest to develop our local resources. And that's I think it's great to bring in experts because they have the deep experience, they can do it with their eyes closed. they've got to have like cultural awareness. You cannot, you need to be keyed into that. And once they have those things, putting in a mechanism for skills transfer, attaching somebody to them to make sure they can do stuff, I think then we make it work. And then we build up local capacity, it creates a win-win situation for our country, for the world.
It's a very interesting news there. It's very nice to your, what we call a recently skilled Nigerians that have spent a lot of time out of country, being around for 3 months. Now, what have you found to be the major differences between project management, UK project management, Nigeria? What are the, I know you have no difficulty finding the challenge, but are there some good things that you can draw out? What are the major differences? What have been your key challenges? What have been surprises, pleasant surprises?
I think the key challenge is just structure, and it's across the board from the sort of executive level all the way down to the soldiers. We seem to understand structure in the sense that, as you said, there's a business case. This is why we're doing what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it. It doesn't matter to me whether it's Prince 2, X, Y, Z, but there's a method, and we all understand that method. And so that structure is lacking, because even the directors say, why are we building this King's Cave, when you say the land?
That's your business case, right?
Yes, that's the business case. Now, that it wasn't part of the strategic plan, for the year, and then you bring the guys to come and manage the project. Before they're running out, trying to buy cement, negotiating this and that. The guy comes and says, I don't like this style, let's change it. Okay, all the efficiency, all the impact on the budget and so on. So it's not structured. Now, at a lower level, the whole concept of reporting what's going on. Even if the director or the higher don't ask for these reports, it's your responsibility to provide that feedback. How you provide it is another issue. What the person, and it's not so much reporting just for the sake of it, it's for me, so that I know where I am at each stage. So that structure, we need to be a lot more defined. For me, the pleasant surprises are the versatility of our people. You have people who are not necessarily trained, but somehow they get the job done. Yes, we be over budgets, over time. Some of these things actually outside of their control. But it's just that versatility and determination. It's okay, let us see, we're very resilient people. And it's that, we need to build on. Because I don't think there is any producer who doesn't take professional pride in what we do. We want to say people are responsible for that. And so people see it through, no matter what the case may be. But the biggest thing is structure for me. And as I said, it doesn't matter what it is. There's not like all these methodologies we adopt, they came from organizations. So if you have enough clouds, people just start small. In Accenture, they had this thing called Method 1. When you join Accenture as a fresh graduate, they don't brainwash you. The joke was that they're robots. Because when you speak to an Accenture graduate, they talk the same. Now, because the company had enough clouds to develop its own methodology of doing things. So what's wrong with us? Any organization developing our own and taking in these cultural differences or cultural issues very well and building on that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So the negatives, if you want me to be specific, is that lack of structure. And it's symptomatic for our society, let's be honest. And it's across the board. The positive, the resilience. We want to learn, like you want to learn, you want to do things well. But when the future of trains, projects in the controlled environment is chaotic. There's not a controlled environment. What we can do is control the environment we're in. Have some method to our madness, if you like. Well, again, there's talk. There's a doubt about it.
So you want to take the next thing out?
No. Land of opportunity there.
Okay, Lady, I'm going to move to a slightly different subject. You touched when you were introducing yourself, you talked about portfolio management. We know there is portfolio management, program management, project management. Can you tell us what the key differences are in terms of negotiations for each and what the differences in terms of outcomes. And perhaps you can share with us some tips and techniques that work for you trying to do.
How much time do I have? I wrote something down in my notebook. I must have got it by you when you asked this question. Basically, the essence, I'm kind of like moving to the point where I really try not to talk about portfolio projects and program management. I kind of like think it's like business management. I am running a professional services company, and I know that there are a lot of entrepreneurs in Nigeria who just want to manage their business successfully. And I try to kind of like think, okay, what are their pain points? Because project management sometimes is not very good. So my summary is this: we have to know exactly why we plan to undertake any major investment. We have to be sure as we can, we have to be as sure as we can that the projects that we choose to undertake are within our capacity to deliver change and that they must deliver a sensible ROI. So from a business perspective, I've got to kind of like sit down, if you could, I could go and draw on that flip chart or just go and talk to it. If you say business management, you have your strategy, you have the reason why you're in business. And therefore, you then have some semblance of this is our budget. This is what we have and this is what we intend to achieve at the end of this year. This is our budget for this year. Our budget is not the budget for this year. So what are the things we can do that are aligned to our strategic objectives? And the CEOs and those kinds of people who sit around, the board of the company, the CEOs, the CXO, will sit around and look at money and what they expect to make in terms of money. How do we want to run this business successfully? Where do we want to be at the end of 2010? Which I think is what a lot of people are doing now. Therefore, we look at budget, money. It's about money. They say at the CXO level, it's about money, return on investment. Why are we building in Isolo versus building in Ikoyi, all of those kind of things. So they make those decisions. So technically, business management is looking at monetary returns and using the combination of monetary returns to decide what as an organization, and the organization can be a small one-man business or whatever else, what are those things that we are going to look into. Some things we just know straight away we cannot look into. Based on your budget, you know that, okay, you cannot look to buy and develop the property in Ikoyi. You have to go to some other places because of the cost. And those are decisions made, business management, portfolio management at the topmost level of the company, because they understand, or they should have a very good awareness of the financial capability. They know what's coming in, know what's going out. And that's their focus. It's really about, are we going to get dividends at the end of this year, or are we going to get bonuses? And they sit down and make those decisions that kind of like should lead into some kind of like pipeline of what are the things, and it can be like, these are the things we must do. That's just saying that portfolio management. These are the things we must do as a company. These are the things that, perhaps we can do. And if we just classify around those areas the objectives of the company, leading to the kind of things that we must do based on your awareness of how much you have, how much you expect to make. And those people sit down there and they're just thinking about the business. And they can be your CEO and stuff. And that's when they go out and talk to newspapers about that these are the things they're going to do. There's another level in the company which kind of like, again, we're going to the department and we're looking at, okay, we need to do all of these things. And I always sometimes use the example. So it's like at the portfolio level, at that top level, it's like financial metrics, return on investment. There's another group, and sometimes this is an example of, let's assume that Sarah decided to build a luxury flat in Ikoyi. And let's just imagine it doesn't happen, hopefully and surely, that they just kind of like commission that and commission the construction of 20 flats, and then they leave it at that. And then maybe the 20 flats are supposed to be delivered June 2010. And then they do that, and then they finish in June 2010, and then they now decide to like start selling the flats. And they now realize that, people didn't even know we were constructing these flats, and they now start marketing the flats in June. And then maybe June, July, August, they have a lot of interest, but people don't have the financial capability and all of that kind of stuff. And then I say somebody has a brain with that, okay, you know what, we can talk to Skybank. They can finance these things for us and help people, and then they have a mortgage. And can you imagine they build for 6 months, and then month 6 plus 3, they now think of marketing, and and then they start to think about that. A sensible organization, having identified, these are the things we're going to do, which the CEO is responsible for, will then know that, okay, there's a group of people that you could call program managers or just call whatever else. I really don't like to use those terms. Call them program managers. They say, we want to achieve this purpose, or we want to build this class. We're not just building them to give them that, we want to build them. You even want to collect the money in month 2 to build the flat, and they just think like that, and they group the whole essence of the construction, the marketing, the financial arrangement, and it becomes one whole, a program, because they kind of like different skill sets and different areas involved, and they group them like that. And that means that by March, April, Sarah have their money. I mean, that would be wonderful, and all of that kind of stuff. And that's what program management is looking at. Generally, is looking at. We have identified the initiatives we're going to look at. Our CEO has identified. And there's a group of us in the company that needs to look at what's the best way to deliver this so that we achieve the optimal benefits and we don't waste time. The scenario I described before would be quite annoying and painful for any CEO. Yeah? We don't want to go through that. And then of course at the project level, and that's why they kind of like say, the tacticians, the people that are delivering the stuff, you have been told develop a marketing, you are the marketing project manager to make sure that these flats, everybody in Lagos knows that they're available. Then you sit down with a group of people and you define, and that could be your project, to define how all of that is going to happen. And at the project level, to some extent, you have been given some more guidelines. There's perhaps less flexibility. You have been given certain parameters within which to work. You're given a timeline, perhaps a budget to work with, and then specific deliverables within that area. And if there are changes, you automatically know if there's some changes, if somebody did not plan properly, you automatically need to go and who to talk to in the chain to allow those changes to kind of like be made taken into consideration for deciding how we're going to go forward. So the projects really focus on the deliverables within time and budget. And I said to you, look, you have 20 million, 6 block of flats, that was, and then at the program level, it's really business benefits. The whole idea of the fact that you have put the things together so that we can get optimal business benefits. At the portfolio level is, are we profitable or are we not profitable? But return on investment, a great deal, boom, boom, boom. Prioritization and all of those kind of stuff. Any questions? And I call it business management because for even small businesses, that's what we're doing now in my small business. What are we doing next year? These areas we need to crystallize, that means we need to go and get some agreements with some companies, some of them will respond to science. I really just want us to make money, be profitable, and do some sales. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a good time for me to also allow other people to ask questions. So I just want to give you an answer. From your description, you sort of equated portfolio management and that
To the business management.
to the business management session. And that then just which my question, that's now cascaded into a set of programs that I'm trying to be able to deliver on that objective, and that's cascaded further into a set of projects that are more granular and more distinct to be able to deliver on the wrong objective. Right? So my question, or my follow-up comment or question is, as regards skills, your experience in this market, where do you see the skills that are most? Are there different skills that are required to run the projects, programs, and portfolios? And where do you see the skill gaps most there?
Okay, good question. Thank you. Programs are glaring everywhere. Most glaring. I think people understand what they want to achieve at the portfolio management. People understand what they want to achieve. We're not good at planning. So even at the portfolio management level, when it doesn't mean the CEOs don't have to plan and prioritize. So even at that level, the planning skills, we like to be high level and we can be very unrealistic. So the planning skills, which kind of like cuts across definitely portfolio management and project management, and all of them, but more particularly those two areas, very lacking. A lot of times I go into projects with big clients, structured clients, and kind of like say, oh, and I love this, it happens to me all the time. We want this done, we have already commissioned this project, and we need it to be completed by May 2010. And I really just listen to them, I'm like, okay, fine. That's what you want, you're the client, and I'm the project management company or whatever. And they say that, okay, and I kind of like try to work, and the CEO level, any level, how did we arrive at June 2010 to do it, and all of those kind of things, and they just never can give, they can never give a very structured reasoning to what they have come up with, because it's a very chaotic environment, a very dynamic environment, and the time to plan is just either the time or the skill. People would excuse and say it's not there. So I think planning in those areas, because if your company doesn't know, you could have excellent project managers, but you could be doing the things that are not going to deliver your strategic objectives. And if the CEOs don't kind of like take time to have a meaningful retreat to decide and to go through a funnel, have good metrics for selecting their projects and prioritizing their projects. And I think it's planning is really very lacking at that level, and it just means, you know, the people who can talk a good talk, we're good leaders, and we've got good ability to sponsor, and we can really make impossible things happen. So that allows us to compensate for the lack of time. I mean, I think that they have good leaders, we have good leaders in Nigeria, people that can, you know, people talk about Adrian Wood of MTN, and when MTN first started, the amazing things that people did because Adrian Wood was such an inspirational leader. Not that Nigerian leaders like that. So our lack of planning is compensated for, otherwise we could be in a very disastrous. By absolutely excellent and annoying firefighting skills, because we could be much more efficient.
Another thing I think about is maybe as project management people, we spread ourselves too thin. Yes, you're building a block of flats, you're delivering software, the method is the same, but ultimately there is what you call domain knowledge, which is highly specialized. I think sometimes we spread ourselves too thin. I like to think maybe a program manager who is responsible for X number of projects. The analogy is like a football manager, yes. You have your goalkeeping coach, your scouts, your fitness coach, that kind of thing. I think we should get to a point where, as program managers, you have people who are procurement experts. There's a balance between putting people in pigeonholes, but you have to have experts. I can't know the details of procurement. I can't know the details of contract negotiation. So you should have a team of people who know more than you, let's put it bluntly, in these areas. So that is your resource pool, that is your project management team who will help you, and that's where the planning comes into it. So, I mean, only yesterday, I built something, and someone said, okay, let's build a quantity. Based on that, the estimate, this is the cost. I can't do it. That is that guy's area of expertise. So, he gives me that figure, you factor it into something else, and then you come up with an overall figure for the cost rather. So, from that perspective, we do that now. Project management, you should have a team of domain experts, from legal, from planners, from whoever, who bring in all this knowledge into the party, and then you can say, okay, this is how I arrived at, my course or my schedule or what have you. You can't know everything, it's just impossible. Project management training is basic. I mean, I have never, yes, you read about Gantt chart, whether it's here or in England, you never see it. It doesn't actually happen in reality. Even if you draw it, it's just for presentation. The reality is different. And that's why, let us be honest and take that on board and work with it.
I'd like to get from your research. Anybody have a comment, question to ask?
I'll ask a question about the PMI and just referring to your coaching and mentoring skills. So So as the PMI as an organization, they have what is that organization's view, or what is that organization's vision on how to impact or impart project management skills into maybe the upcoming project managers in Nigeria, the youth, or things like
Thank you
that.
for giving me an opportunity to sell PMI.
She's
not going to
I'm not the member.
I was actually going to ask you that, but you didn't tell us any further, but this was asked the question.
The Project Management Institute, the parent body, it's an organization that has 250,000 members, 250 paid staff. In the States, volunteering is a very big thing. So I joined PMI, and as soon as I joined, there were loads of opportunities to read a lot of material, but more importantly, in a virtual community, contribute my little knowledge in a bigger group. I didn't know the people, I didn't see them unless we had some meetings. But something like called the OPM 3 standard, or what people call as the PM box, were actually developed by volunteers working virtually. And there will be a volunteer project manager, a volunteer project lead that kind of like just work on real life projects that you may not get money, you might get your travel paid to some places and your accommodation, but you don't get paid in cash. You get paid in terms of recognition in the PM box. Nobody can take the experience away. You give something to get something. PMI Lagos Nigeria is adopting the same approach. We actually have a director of volunteer development to work on. We have loads of projects in the chapter that we need to execute. One of them is at the end of the year, the project of the year. The plan is to work with them. Project managers or new people into project management, give them an opportunity to volunteer to work on these projects. We recognize that people have their daytime jobs, so we split some of these roles, but there will be opportunity for people to join the chapter and work on these projects to build up experience, because you have a project manager or somebody in the team that understands how to do stuff. So if you like working, we're not getting paid for it, but nobody can take away the experience. There will be loads of those kind of opportunities. And we're committed to that. That's why we have the director of volunteer development.
But what do you have to do with
in Nigeria? Impact numbers. I mean, last year we worked with some organizations to organize something called Promacon, but this year, September, to work on something called Promacon. And it was an attempt to kind of like work with the government. Because they think, to some extent, if the government kind of like starts to, like the Department of Defense in the state, starts to require some things of contractors working with the government. Some basic things around ethics and around some skill level. Then we could start to have more projects delivered. So we met with the Speaker of the House, and we were keen into the idea. And the conference was actually organized for the public sector. Then after that, and the idea is to kind of like have some kind of input into Vision 2010? Vision 2020, to have some kind of input into that. And that's kind of like what we are working on. But in time, we need people, we need numbers. So we're making, some of the little things we have done, like we do have a branch of PMI chapter on the mainland. It's like first thing we've got to do is get people together so that we can start to discuss. We bring guest speakers to come and talk to people about building up their knowledge and about demystifying project management. That we have done quite well this year. But to go on, that's one level of letting people know that they're not there by themselves, and that there is like challenges and there are opportunities. And then taking it further into more consolidated goals that are more strategic thinking in terms of what we want to achieve and all this stuff we need to get the government to key into better development practices. And if the government has power and they pay a lot of people money, they're able to do more. But we are also looking to work with universities to accredit some of their courses and so many things. And we need good experienced people to serve on the board of PMI. I invited Tony to our last meeting, but we do, just like we're doing expatriate project managers or subject matter experts. Volunteering is something that is not necessarily as well accepted in Nigeria as it is in the States. So it's something we're trying to do.
Since we touched on the methodology directly. The next question is how you mentioned that you had delivered 2 projects successfully. Tell us, do you use any specific methodology in delivering these projects? What do you consider to have been satisfactory? So when you say successfully, you can also tell us what factors, what indices you use to define success, and tell us the specific methodology you use and what key success factors.
The 2 projects that we delivered, rural agriculture, business, culture, and the other one was the IT one was a key project that I came from an IT environment from my previous employer, which was GE. And a lot of what we do is around concept, requirements, the standard, implementation, and then fallback. And I use that sort of like exit methodology to go to more of the IT project. It wasn't a big one. Basically, what we're doing was actually replacing the server. It's a small company, it's about 47 of us. A lot of people in the IT department is pretty small, so it was a lot of getting people to, just a few people, to actually understand what the server does, why we need a server, because prior to that, we didn't even have a server in the house. We had a laptop, everybody stayed on just normal drives, and so it was helping people understand the criticality of what having a server to have a backup. So it was rolling out, the methodology that we've always rolled in our IT shop to actually roll that out completely. In terms of success factors, I think for me, really, it was the criticality, how do people understand the criticality of why we need to be, in the same environment at the same time, saving in this particular environment, security of the digital company, and the fact that anything that's called, out of the company becomes news, like, there's a lot of talk in the press about, transfer this, transfer that, in the sense that we heard this, we heard that. We've actually heard about stuff leaving the company without people knowing, and the reason for that, we didn't have a safe and secure environment to store our data. And we didn't have that because the prior administration did not think that it was critical to actually secure your data for a multitude of reasons. Did you mention, you get a bill, come in, do it, go, not realizing that there's an impact, a bigger impact on your organization as a whole. I think it was a lot of that understanding. Another thing was teaching. There's a lot of mentoring and coaching where I work anyway, but it's teaching people how to use, as I mentioned earlier, people just type something in Excel and boom, that's it. But helping people to go through step by step and understand, okay, if I move A, it impacts B, if I move B, it impacts C, and here's how, you actually, tie that together. So there was a lot of mentoring, there was a lot of coaching, there was a lot of, lots of feedback from a lot of the members of the team, which was a small team of 5 people. And then applying to everybody in the organization, teaching them about security of your data. Little things where I'm coming from, but big things, in an environment where it normally doesn't occur. In the agricultural space, we were trying to get the deal done. So it was packaging that whole deal, from the negotiations to the contract to, the requirements gathering and analysis. It wasn't IT related, so we had to come up with our own mini methodology. So it wasn't the big step. It was, okay, first of all, you have a concept document, you have the MOU, and then after that, you broker the deal, and then you execute and get it done. You're not designing anything technically. You're just, following on a strategy. This is, what it's going to do for the company. This is how it's going to benefit. Here's our return on investment at the end of the day. So we came up with something quick and dirty because also in this environment, people don't like long-winded stuff. They just want to, go ahead and do it. So it's getting them from point A to point Z, and making sure they cross B, C, D, E, and E.
How do you take any question from the audience as we go along? Your key and which of these 2 methodologies have you used found to be the challenges around
I'm the first of all. I say this in the nicest way possible. I don't really care whether it's true or PMP. I accept that we should have formal training. But to me, what that gives an individual is boundaries by which you can operate. Project management, all of it is common sense and experience. Like I said, the training that I give is fundamentally we do the same thing. We say the same thing. There are subtle differences, and if you want to read it, yes, you find something to differentiate. But like I said, it's all about delivery and how you get there. There's a reason, there's why you're doing what you're doing, there's how you do it, there's how you report, there's the complete, and then you measure at the end. Whether you measure by survey, that's what it doesn't matter, you measure. So I'm not fastidious about whether it's been sort of PMP. I like to think that in the work that I do, it's just based on the fact that I've had some structure in the way that things should be done. So no, I do it subconsciously. I'm not aware that I'm using it for creative methodology or anything. Like I said, market woman in the market, she plans things, she buys, she knows what she sells. It's trained by experience. So yes, by all means, it gives you that level. I guess most of us are university educated, we have some experience from school. It gives you that structure, but it's until you put it into practice and you learn from your mistakes. You have lessons learned, or restore, they all do the same thing, but it's applying it in the environment in which you're in. What works here, not necessarily going to work there, not because it's wrong, but the operating environment is different. And so you have to understand that. So by all means, whichever one you can afford, whichever one is easier for you to pass, please do whichever one. But when it comes down to the reality of it, practice and learn. That's my view.
Well, let me just be careful about it, because my view is that I don't encourage children, but I can think that there's value to be derived from the common way of doing things, which I think a lot of organizations lack. Typically what you find, what I find, is that managing projects or going to organizations, everybody has a different view of how to go about managing projects, and that has both ways into chaos and lack of us, sort of singing from the same people. So whether it's PMP, whether it's your own flavor, you combine it. I think the methodology does help to say, if we're going to move from A to Z, let's follow the same route. We all agree that this is the best route, because let's just take Lagos, for example. If I'm trying to get from here to Kenya, and we're all in the same city, we want to go and catch a flight, and we say, you know what, everybody take your car, let's just get there. We're going to get there. We have to get on the same page. We're going to get there at different times, and then we may not be able to catch the same thing. So the objective is somewhat different. But if we had that some small discussion around which route should we take, okay, we'll go to serving language, and discuss it in some level of detail, let's go this route. The likelihood, not 100% certain, but the likelihood that we'll all get there at the same time, or around the same time, and therefore catch our plane is heightened. So what I think that a lot of organizations grapple with is that common language. What really can we start with? Because if you don't have that common language, something as simple as a business case may not make sense to some people. When we need a business case, it's obvious that we need to do it. Let's just, what business case? Let's just do it. And then later on we start to grapple. Some people don't even understand the concepts of business. So whether we call them the risk assessment of low quality, whatever we don't have to use those technologies, but just being able to follow some process that I know all agree. You never get 100%. I think that in this environment, especially because of the structural issue that you raised in that, perhaps.
No, I agree with that. I'll give you some companies realize why I am in Sahara today. We don't have a structured way of reporting status. And I asked one of the directors, I have this idea, I want to do it this way. Because for them, if they see a status report, whether it's from building science, from IT work, whatever, they know in areas, if there's a standard format, you know, I look here for issues, I look here for them. But right now, they're getting different things. And the fact of the matter is, we don't even read them, because it's just a pain. There's no solution. So, okay, let us have a standard template. What you put inside, that's what you do for the individual project managers, but the template is the same. So when you see it, okay, this is the standard document. But then I said, okay, let's get project manager around, because it will be very easy for me to say take and use. Now, there is no way I can tell like monetary. Now, okay, let's come together, talk about it, like you said, have a 5-minute discussion, 1 hour, whatever it is. Send out an email, nobody responds. And then call, say, did you see my email? Yes, I saw your email, but I didn't understand it. So what you can tell me? So those are the challenges, and that's the practicality of the situation. But these people, these guys, they're actually running their projects in their own fashion. They do reports in some way. But when you say, yes, I agree we should have a structure, that's why I said, for any organization, let it come from within. If you can adopt something, fair enough, but it's, you give people a sense of ownership. When they're part of the process, okay, yes, we play the role, and then they're not blind or not like they feel that they have responsibility